This couple walked into a fine dining restaurant, saw a black waiter, and immediately asked for someone else to serve them. What they didn't know? That waiter was actually the head chef. And when they finally tasted his food, they literally begged him to come back to their table. Have you ever been so wrong about someone that it completely changed your perspective? That's what happened to a wealthy couple in Chicago. They went to one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, made a snap judgment about their server based on how he looked, and demanded someone else. But here's the thing. That person they rejected? He was the reason the restaurant had a 6-month waiting list. He was the genius behind every dish. And when they found out the truth, the embarrassment was so intense, it became legendary in Chicago's food scene. This actually happened, and it's beautiful. DeMarco Williams grew up on the south side of Chicago, Englewood, to be specific. If you know Chicago, you know that's not the neighborhood people associate with Michelin-star chefs and fine dining. His mom worked as a home health aide. His dad drove a city bus. Money was tight, but there was always food on the table. And his grandmother? She was the best cook in the neighborhood. Hands down. DeMarco spent his childhood in her kitchen. Watching her make collard greens, cornbread, fried chicken, mac and cheese, sweet potato pie. She never measured anything. Just knew, by feel, by taste, by instinct. She'd let young DeMarco stir the pots, season the meat, taste the greens. Cooking is love, baby, she'd tell him. You put your heart in it, people taste that. DeMarco loved cooking. But when he told his high school guidance counselor he wanted to be a chef, she literally laughed. Be realistic, she said. Maybe try trade school. Learn HVS or something practical. But DeMarco wasn't interested in being realistic. He was interested in being great. After high school, he got a job washing dishes at a restaurant in downtown Chicago. It was a mid-level Italian place, nothing fancy, but it had a real kitchen with real chefs. DeMarco watched everything. He stayed late, came in early, asked questions, volunteered to prep vegetables just to be near the action. The head chef noticed. A guy named Tony, Italian-American, been cooking for 30 years. He saw something in DeMarco. You want to learn? Tony asked one day. Yes, chef. Then pay attention and don't talk back. For 2 years, DeMarco learned from Tony. Classical techniques, French mother sauces, Italian pasta from scratch, knife skills, timing, precision. Tony was tough, demanding, sometimes brutal, but he taught DeMarco everything. Then Tony helped him get into the Cooking and Hospitality Institute of Chicago. It was expensive, but DeMarco took out loans, worked nights and weekends, slept maybe 4 hours a night. He graduated top of his class. After culinary school, DeMarco worked his way through Chicago's restaurant scene. He started as a line cook at a contemporary American place in River North, then moved to a French bistro in Lincoln Park, then a modern Italian spot in West Loop. Each job taught him something new. Each chef he worked under added to his arsenal. By the time DeMarco was 28, he was sous chef at Oriole, one of Chicago's most prestigious restaurants. And at 31, he became head chef at a brand new restaurant called Essence. Essence was the dream. The owner, a wealthy investor named Richard Chen, gave DeMarco complete creative control. The concept was elevated soul food meets French technique, taking the flavors DeMarco grew up with, the collard greens, the cornbread, the fried chicken, and reimagining them with the skills he'd learned in fine dining. The restaurant opened to massive buzz. Food critics raved. Within 6 months, Essence had a Michelin-star. Within a year, it was impossible to get a reservation. People were booking tables 6 months in advance. DeMarco's cooking was that good. He did things like bourbon-braised short ribs with sweet potato puree and charred okra, pan-seared duck breast with collard green pesto and cornbread croutons, buttermilk fried quail with hot honey and pickled watermelon rind. Food that told a story, food that honored his grandmother's kitchen while pushing culinary boundaries. But here's the thing about fine dining in America. Even when you're the head chef, even when you have a Michelin star, even when critics call you a genius, some people still see a black man and make assumptions. Essence had an open kitchen design. Diners could see directly into the kitchen from the dining room. DeMarco loved it. He liked the energy, the connection with guests. Sometimes, during service, he'd step out onto the floor to check on tables, say hello to regulars, get feedback on new dishes. He'd wear his chef whites, but sometimes he'd throw an apron over them. And when he did that, people would mistake him for a server, which was fine. He didn't mind. Servers were essential. The front-of-house team made the restaurant work just as much as the kitchen. But the problem was how some people treated him when they thought he was just a server. DeMarco had been ignored, dismissed, talked down to, snapped at. He'd had people refuse to make eye contact. He'd had people ask to speak to the real chef while he was standing right there in his chef whites with executive chef embroidered on the jacket. It happened enough that DeMarco developed a thick skin. He'd smile, stay professional, go back to the kitchen, and let his food do the talking. But one night, something happened that he'd never forget. It was a Friday in October. The restaurant was fully booked, every table reserved weeks in advance. The dining room buzzed with energy. Well-dressed couples, business dinners, special occasions. This was the kind of place where people came to celebrate. At 7:30 p.m., a couple walked in. The host greeted them at the door. Their reservation was under the name Whitmore, James and Catherine Whitmore. James was in his late 50s, silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of watch that costs more than most people's cars. Catherine was probably 10 years younger, blonde, designer dress, carrying a purse that DeMarco recognized as Hermes, the kind that has a waiting list. The host led them to their table. It was a prime spot, center of the dining room, with a perfect view of the open kitchen. DeMarco was in the kitchen, plating a dish, when he noticed them sit down. He always paid attention to new tables, trying to read the room, understand the vibe. One of the servers, a young guy named Marcus, approached their table with menus and water. "Good evening. Welcome to Essence," Marcus said with a smile. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" James barely looked at him. "We'd like a bottle of the 2015 Chateau Margaux." "Excellent choice," Marcus said. "I'll have our sommelier bring that right out." As Marcus walked away, DeMarco saw Catherine lean toward her husband. He couldn't hear what she said, but he saw James nod in agreement. Then James raised his hand, flagging down the host. The host, a woman named Sarah, approached the table. "Is everything all right?" "We'd prefer a different server," James said quietly but firmly. Sarah blinked. "Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a problem with Marcus?" "We'd just be more comfortable with someone else," Catherine said. "Someone more experienced." Sarah's smile tightened. She'd worked in fine dining for 15 years. She knew exactly what was happening. "Of course. Let me see what I can do." She walked back to the server station where Marcus was preparing to get their wine. "Hey, I need you to switch with Jennifer. Table 14. Marcus looked confused. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" "No," Sarah said carefully. "They just requested someone else." Marcus glanced at the table, at the wealthy white couple who couldn't even look him in the eye. Understanding crossed his face. "Oh, yeah, okay." Jennifer, a white server in her 30s, took over the table. She brought the wine, took their orders, did everything perfectly professionally. DeMarco watched the whole thing from the kitchen. He'd seen it happen. He knew exactly why they'd switched servers, and it made his blood boil. But he had a full dining room to cook for, so he pushed it aside and focused on the tickets coming in. Table 14 ordered the tasting menu. 7 courses, chef's choice, the full experience. It was $185 per person and showcased DeMarco's best work. The first course went out. Cornbread madeleines with honey butter and smoked sea salt. Jennifer brought it to the table. James and Catherine tasted it. DeMarco watched their faces change. Surprise. Then pleasure. "This is incredible," Catherine said to Jennifer. "Is this really cornbread?" "Yes, ma'am. The chef does a take on traditional cornbread with a French Madeleine technique. The second course, heirloom tomato salad with burrata, pickled okra, and basil oil." Again, DeMarco watched them taste it. Again, their expressions shifted. They were impressed. Third course, pan-seared scallops with sweet corn puree, crispy prosciutto, and collard green oil. James put down his fork and shook his head in disbelief. "This is some of the best food I've ever had. Who's the chef here?" Jennifer smiled. "Chef DeMarco Williams. He's incredible." "I'd love to meet him," James said. "After dinner, of course. I want to compliment him personally." The courses kept coming. Bourbon braised short rib, duck breast with collard green pesto, a cheese course with honeycomb and house-made crackers, and finally, dessert. Peach cobbler deconstructed with buttermilk ice cream and candied pecans. By the end of the meal, James and Catherine were practically glowing. They'd finished everything, barely spoke during the meal because they were too busy savoring every bite. James flagged down Jennifer. "That was extraordinary. Truly, best meal we've had in years. And we eat at the top restaurants in New York, San Francisco, Paris. This was world-class." "Thank you so much," Jennifer said. "I'll let the chef know." "Actually," Catherine said, "we'd really love to meet him. Is that possible?" "I'll ask," Jennifer said. She walked back to the kitchen and found DeMarco. "Table 14 wants to meet you." They loved everything. DeMarco looked at the table. The same couple who'd refused to be served by Marcus, who'd asked for someone more experienced. Something in DeMarco's expression made Sarah, the host, walk over. "You don't have to," she said quietly. "No," DeMarco said. "I want to." He wiped his hands, straightened his chef's coat, and walked out of the kitchen. DeMarco approached table 14. James and Catherine looked up, smiling, ready to shower him with compliments. And then their smiles froze. Because DeMarco was black. And they clearly hadn't expected that. There was this moment, this split second where you could see the confusion on their faces. Like their brains were trying to reconcile the incredible food they'd just eaten with the person standing in front of them. "Good evening," DeMarco said with a professional smile. "I'm Chef DeMarco Williams. I hear you enjoyed your meal." James recovered first. Yes, absolutely. That was phenomenal, really. Best meal we've had in a long time." "Thank you," DeMarco said. "I appreciate that." Catherine was staring. Not rudely, but like she was trying to process something. "You created all of that?" "I did," DeMarco said. "The tasting menu is my way of telling a story through food, taking the flavors I grew up with and reimagining them with classical technique." "It's genius," James said. He seemed genuine now. Truly genius. "Where did you train?" DeMarco listed his credentials: the Cooking and Hospitality Institute, his time at Oriole, the restaurants he'd worked at across Chicago. Catherine leaned forward. "And the soul food elements. That's your heritage?" "It is," DeMarco said. "My grandmother was the best cook I ever knew. Everything I do is built on what she taught me." There was another pause, an awkward one, because everyone at the table knew what had happened earlier. The server switch, the assumption, the judgment, and DeMarco decided he wasn't going to let it slide. "I actually wanted to mention something," he said, his tone still polite, but with an edge. "Earlier tonight, you requested a different server. You asked for someone more experienced." James and Catherine both went pale. "I want you to know," DeMarco continued, "that Marcus, the server you didn't want, has been with us since we opened. He's trained extensively on our menu, our wine list, our service standards. He's excellent at his job. One of our best." The silence at the table was deafening. "The reason I bring this up," DeMarco said, is because I think you rejected him for the same reason you seem surprised that I'm the chef. You made an assumption based on how someone looks. And in a restaurant like this, in a world like this, that's something we need to talk about. Catherine looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. James opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're right, James finally said. His voice was quiet. You're absolutely right. And I'm ashamed. We both are, Catherine added. That was inexcusable. We made a terrible assumption about your server. And honestly, yes, we're surprised you're the chef. Not because you're not talented, clearly you're incredibly talented, but because we had preconceived notions about what a Michelin-star chef looks like. DeMarco nodded. I appreciate you acknowledging that. Is Marcus still here? James asked. I'd like to apologize to him personally. DeMarco was taken aback. He hadn't expected that. He is. Would you ask him to come to our table? Please? DeMarco walked back to the kitchen. He found Marcus, who was helping run food to other tables. Table 14 wants to talk to you. Marcus looked worried. Am I in trouble? No. Just go. Marcus walked over to the table nervously. James and Catherine both stood up when he approached. Sir, James said, I owe you an apology. When you first came to our table, I asked for a different server. That was wrong. It was based on prejudice, and it was unfair to you. You didn't deserve that. Marcus stood there stunned. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. You should know, Catherine added, that we just had the best meal of our lives, and I'm sure you would have provided excellent service. We were wrong. Marcus nodded, clearly emotional. Thank you. That really means a lot. After Marcus walked away, James called Jennifer over. We'd like to leave a tip for Marcus as well, even though he didn't serve us. Would that be possible? Of course, Jennifer said. When the check came, James left a $500 tip and specified that $250 go to Jennifer and $250 go to Marcus. Before they left, James approached Sarah at the host stand. I'd like to book another reservation, as soon as possible. We're booked 6 months out, Sarah said. I understand. Put us on the wait list, and if anything opens up sooner, please call me. I want to come back, and this time I want Marcus to be our server. James and Catherine did come back, 3 months later, when someone canceled their reservation. They specifically requested Marcus. They were polite, respectful, and generous. They ordered the tasting menu again and raved about every course. They also became regulars. Once every couple months, they'd book a table. Always requested Marcus. Always left huge tips. And they told everyone they knew about Essence. Best restaurant in Chicago, James would say at dinner parties. And the chef is a genius. DeMarco Williams. You have to go. The story spread through Chicago's food scene. Not because DeMarco told people, but because other staff members shared it. It became one of those legendary restaurant stories, the kind servers and chefs tell each other to illustrate a point. DeMarco never publicly shamed James and Catherine. He could have. He could have posted about it on social media, turned it into a viral moment, made them the villains of a story about racism in fine dining. But that wasn't his style. He'd made his point directly, to their faces, in the moment. And they'd responded with genuine remorse and changed behavior. That was enough. What mattered more to DeMarco was Marcus, the young server who'd been rejected for no reason other than the color of his skin. DeMarco made sure Marcus knew his value, made sure he got opportunities to advance. A year later, Marcus was promoted to lead server, and then, eventually, to front-of-house manager. Essence continued to thrive. DeMarco earned a second Michelin star 2 years later. He was featured in Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, The New York Times. He appeared on cooking shows. He wrote a cookbook that became a bestseller. But his favorite moments weren't the accolades or the media attention. His favorite moments were still in the kitchen, during service, when he'd plate a dish and send it out to the dining room. when he'd watch a guest take that first bite and see their face light up with surprise and joy. Because that's what cooking was about. Not proving people wrong. Not getting revenge on people who doubted him. But creating something beautiful and sharing it with others. His grandmother had been right all along. Cooking is love. You put your heart in it. People taste that. And when people tasted DeMarco's food, they tasted his grandmother's kitchen in Englewood. They tasted his journey from dishwasher to Michelin-star chef. They tasted his refusal to be limited by other people's assumptions. They tasted excellence. That couple, James and Catherine Whitmore, they learned something important that night. They learned that genius doesn't look one way. That talent isn't confined to people who fit a certain profile. That if you judge people based on appearance, you'll miss out on extraordinary experiences. They almost missed out on one of the best meals of their lives because of prejudice. Luckily for them, they had the humility to recognize their mistake and learn from it. Not everyone does. But those who do, they get to experience something truly special. Hit subscribe if you want more stories like this.